My radio blared, a voice mixed with static coming from the speakers. Urgent help needed at the park on Grand Avenue. An unidentified woman has been attacked and is in critical condition. Grand Avenue is just a few blocks away. I turned on the ignition, pressed the button next to the radio. Unit 7 responding. Any information on the nature of the attack? Nothing more, the line responded with a static hiss. I backed out onto the road and quickly made it to Grand Avenue. In the distance, I could hear the sirens of the ambulances and other rescue units. This was something really serious. After a few minutes, I arrived at the scene. I quickly showed my police badge and passed the blockade. I walked past the ambulances and other rescue vehicles to an area where a group of people in their uniforms were standing around. A police officer looked back and seemed to recognize me, probably from training, then stepped back so I could get a better look at the center of the commotion. I clicked my tongue. In front of me was a person. The woman was lying on the ground. The only way I knew it was a woman was because dispatch had told me. The person lying in front of me was so disfigured that her original appearance was unrecognizable. Her entire body was pierced with thousands of toothpicks, each one deeply embedded in her flesh. Blood oozed from each wound, covering her body in red and staining the ground nearby. And she was still alive. She was clearly and painfully breathing, each gasp heavy. A medical staffer nearby informed me, "This condition won't last much longer. We can't move her. Each movement only drives the toothpicks deeper into her flesh, making the problem worse. And we can't remove them," he said in a low voice. "Why not?" I asked. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. "That's the problem. We can't. These toothpicks, they all have barbs on the end, meaning they can only be pushed in. We tried to insert an artificial breathing tube, but..." He didn't need to finish. I raised my hand and pointed towards the woman, at the toothpicks in her nose. I looked at the woman for a long moment. I saw her chest rise and fall as she tried to catch her breath. Then her chest fell, causing the toothpicks to dig deeper into her skin, speeding up the bleeding, which was already horrendous. I looked at the paramedics, who were slowly realizing that this woman was going to die a slow and painful death, and there was nothing any of them could do to stop it. I had seen a lot in my career, but this was beyond anything I had ever seen before. I prided myself on being able to keep my cool in any situation. I could keep a straight face and control any situation, but this was different. The brutality of the attack made a whirlpool inside me that threatened to burst out of my mouth if I wasn't careful. Everything about this scene seemed like hell. The human body wasn't made to be treated like this. There was an instinct inside me telling me to run away, a primal fear ingrained in my brain. But I couldn't. Even though this situation filled me with fear, I had to stay. I had a mission to do. I turned around and asked the paramedic how she was found. He sighed. "Exactly like this. A passerby called it in. We tried to help her in every way possible, but..." He stopped, his eyes seeming to drift far away. "Is there anything else I should know?" I asked. He looked at me, but not directly. His eyes seemed cloudy, absent-minded, fixed on a faraway point. I guessed it was due to shock. "Well, there were a few items found next to her," he finally said. He left to get them, then came back with a small folded piece of paper and a small silver wristwatch. He handed them to me. The watch caught my attention. It looked familiar. Actually, maybe all silver watches with 3 subdials looked the same. But this watch was something different. The weight and feel of the metal against the palm of my hand seemed to awaken a long-forgotten memory. I could feel myself holding this watch years ago and putting it on someone else's wrist. I turned the watch over. 2 simple letters were engraved on the back. 2 letters that made me pale and made the world seem to crash down on me. 2 letters that I had engraved on it 6 years ago. Alice Edwards, my sister. She was presumed missing over 3 years ago, after leaving home for a jog at night and never returning, leaving behind a heartbroken husband and a 4-year-old daughter. The search was slowly abandoned, with no leads and no witnesses. My mind full of questions, I turned back to her. I forced myself to look past the bloodstains, past the toothpicks and the marred flesh. I looked into her eyes, the only part of her body not riddled with toothpicks, and I burst into tears, because at that moment I knew. Her eyes were bloodshot and empty, but I've seen them enough. The woman lying on the ground in front of me was my sister. I thought she was dead, and now I'm watching her die again. I turned away from her and from everyone around. These events were too hard to swallow, and I knew I had to leave the scene, otherwise I would have a breakdown. The tears were too strong. I nodded to the police guarding the cordon and went through it. As I left, I realized I still had the little piece of paper the paramedic gave me, the one found near her body. I opened it up. What do you think of my little hedgehog? If you like it, don't worry. My zoo is just getting started. When you've been doing this long enough, like me, you're sure to see some horrible things. Trust me, I've seen it all. A billionaire grocer who drove his wife so mad she committed murder-suicide. A young girl thrown onto the train tracks in front of an oncoming train by a stalker. What haunted me most was seeing my own sister slowly die in agony from thousands of toothpicks being stabbed all over her body, which led the killer to call her the Hedgehog. Yes, as you can guess, that was the last case I was working on, trying to figure out how the killer could get away with it. If you think about it, nothing makes sense. First of all, the toothpicks were definitely inserted at some other location before she was taken to the park and left there to die, all without witnesses. And then there's the question of the toothpicks themselves. The paramedics at the scene said she couldn't be moved because it would only cause the toothpicks to dig deeper into her skin. So how did the killer transport her? I actually have an answer to that question, but I don't want to think about it. That they were probably inserted, one by one, over the course of months or even years, allowing the wound to heal before moving on to the next toothpick. And this is the last issue that's been bugging me. What did the killer gain from spending months just sticking toothpicks into her flesh? Why my sister? I couldn't find any reason. Maybe it was an act of revenge. This was probably a random murder. This just added to my heartache. I'm still in shock that she's alive after all these years, and seeing her treated like this, it just adds salt to the wound. I'm grieving, yes, but the killer left a message that my sister was just the beginning. Solving this case is my top priority. I can't let this happen again. Only when I catch him can I truly grieve. So I sat in my office, putting my sister's watch on my wrist and mulling over these facts. The day after the murder, I received a birthday card with an address written inside, sent straight to me. Forensic analysis showed the handwriting on the card matched the handwriting at the scene. Receiving a handwritten birthday card was interesting, but it also raised a whole bunch of other questions. How did the killer know I took the case? Was he at the scene that night? Maybe he knew it was my sister, and now he was targeting me. As usual, nothing was clear. But anyway, an address is an address, and in my line of work, things like that need to be taken seriously. I picked up the birthday card again, looked at the cartoon giraffe telling me to have a good day. Some joke. It was weird. I looked back at the number, 12 Baker Street, as if it had some hidden meaning I hadn't yet figured out. But still, nothing. It seemed to be just an address. I coordinated with my boss to take a team down to Baker Street that evening. I secretly hoped we wouldn't find anything, that this was all a futile hunt. I was afraid of what I would find there. That evening, I went to 12 Baker Street with three of the best people I knew. Thompson, a burly man who could keep his cool in any situation. Ramirez, not as physically impressive as Thompson, but his intelligence made up for it. His quick wit had saved many officers. And Edison, our analyst. Whether in the field or in the office, he was always on top of things. I picked the best to deal with the worst. Baker Street was a row of warehouses in an industrial area on the outskirts of town. All the warehouses looked identical, large, rectangular, and built of red brick. Almost half of the warehouses were still in operation, while the other half looked abandoned. 12 Baker Street was one of the abandoned ones. It had a typical, unsightly appearance: broken glass, rubbish piled around the outside, bricks broken in places, and the door was slightly off the hinges. But this was the place. I gritted my teeth and signaled to the others, then slowly walked through the front door, which was open. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust to the darkness. I could hear a faint sound, unmistakable, drops of water falling from the ceiling onto a hollow object. The air seemed thick and musty. Mostly there was a smell of wet cardboard and something a little metallic. Blood. The strong smell hit my nose, overpowering all the other smells. I continued forward, my team following closely behind me. Thompson, a burly man who could keep his cool in any situation. Ramirez, not as physically impressive as Thompson, but his intelligence made up for it. His quick wit had saved many officers. And Edison, our analyst. Whether in the field or in the office, he was always on top of things. I picked the best to deal with the worst. Baker Street was a row of warehouses in an industrial area on the outskirts of town. All the warehouses looked identical, large, rectangular, and built of red brick. Almost half of the warehouses were still in operation, while the other half looked abandoned. 12 Baker Street was one of the abandoned ones. It had a typical, unsightly appearance: broken glass, rubbish piled around the outside, bricks broken in places, and the door was slightly off the hinges. But this was the place. I gritted my teeth and signaled to the others, then slowly walked through the front door, which was open. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust to the darkness. I could hear a faint sound, unmistakable, drops of water falling from the ceiling onto a hollow object. The air seemed thick and musty. Mostly there was a smell of wet cardboard and something a little metallic. Blood. The strong smell hit my nose, overpowering all the other smells. I continued forward, my team following closely behind me. Edison looked at me with a raised eyebrow, and I nodded in response. This was the place. I silently told him to be ready for anything. We went through another set of doors and into a room dimly lit by a single light bulb. And in the middle of the room, under the light, there was a person. And to say a person is a bit too common. A human neck is 10 to 15 centimeters long. The person in front of me had a neck 10 times that length. His neck grew from his shoulder like a vine, then curled down, continuing to crawl across the floor for another 1.5 meters, then ended with a head. He saw us and began to slowly shuffle towards us, dragging both his head and his neck. He was groaning in pain as he moved, and I could see streams of blood running from the stitches that were spaced a few centimeters apart all along his neck. As he got closer, blood fell on the ground, leaving a bright red trail. He was groaning again, looking up at us, obviously in excruciating pain. "What the hell is this?" Ramirez cried out behind me. I was still staring at this person. Another animal-themed creature, I thought. I stood still, watching, not knowing what to do as he dragged his long neck and body towards us. He looked straight into my eyes. His mouth opened as if to speak, but only horrible moans came out. However, I understood what he meant. His mouth opened in a circle as if to emphasize a single syllable. Save. I backed away mostly out of fear. I knew this creature probably wouldn't hurt me, but in the back of my mind, the warning bells were ringing. This wasn't natural. People shouldn't look like this. I could feel my team behind me also starting to tense up and back away, probably going through the same thing as me. This person continued to crawl forward, lengthening the trail of blood. Each movement got slower and weaker. The life seemed to be leaving him. It was clear I was witnessing the last moments of a man being tortured to death. Again. A voice rang out, the sound coming from above, broken and distorted, probably from a speaker system. It sounded calm, even cheerful. Welcome all guests to the newest attraction of the human zoo, a beautiful giraffe, created by slowly tearing off parts of his neck and replacing them with larger and more suitable pieces of human flesh. I winced, listening. It doesn't sound pleasant, yes, a slow process, but look at the end result. Isn't it great? Clearly much more beautiful than the original form, right? Jonathan? I looked up, almost reflexively. That was my name. Anyway, I just wanted to extend my sincere thanks to you for volunteering such a wonderful specimen to add to my collection. I know you'll enjoy the wonderful things I've prepared for you. The voice stopped, and at that moment, I was aware of two things. The deafening sound of metal on metal from the right side of the room, a gunshot, and to the left, Thompson's leg jerked back, causing him to collapse. Blood spurted from the area just above his knee, a bullet wound. I did what anyone faced with an invisible gunman would do. I ducked and dashed for cover. Fear was my main motivator. I found a pile of boxes to hide behind. I stood still, chest heaving with adrenaline, assessing the situation. Thompson was lying motionless on the floor. He must have hit his head when he fell. Edison was right next to me, hiding. Ramirez was nowhere to be seen, and there was a gunman. Everything was wrong. Then the overhead lights went out. Nothing makes your heart beat faster than panic when you're suddenly thrust into darkness. I heard footsteps up ahead, near where Thompson lay. It could be Ramirez wanting to help him or the gunman wanting to finish the job. I hoped it was Ramirez. Another set of footsteps sounded, heavier, louder. There were more people. I considered rushing to Thompson's side, pulling him and getting out of there, but he was too heavy. I turned to Edison to see if he had a plan. Then, the lights came back on. I looked around. The poor guy, the giraffe, was lying on the floor, motionless, dead. Ramirez was collapsed on a crate in the distance, barely conscious. Thompson was gone. The sniper was gone. Edison helped me get Ramirez back to the car. He was covered in bruises, looking like he'd been in a fight, but he was breathing. I couldn't say the same about the giraffe. We ran a sweep of the entire warehouse but found nothing. The place seemed to have been cleaned. It was hard to understand it all. I lost Thompson, and in his place was a man with a neck almost 7 meters long. Thompson was out there, transformed into some kind of thing. I didn't dare think about it. Ramirez was lying in the hospital, brutally beaten. Edison was in shock. Completely understandable. I was scared. Everyone was scared. But what haunted me most were the words over the speaker system. The way they said the giraffe's neck was made up of larger pieces of flesh, as if he had more people to use. And judging by the length of that neck, there were many, many people. I should start by saying I was no longer a detective. After the incident at the warehouse, I was called in to see my immediate superior, Sergeant Langley. When I walked in, she was sitting behind her mahogany desk, staring intently at some file. She looked up and said, "What the hell happened, Jonathan?" We weren't prepared enough, sir," I replied. She squinted at me from across the table. "We have a missing person. How unprepared is unprepared? And another person with serious injuries. You didn't take any precautions? With all due respect, sir, you weren't there, I replied, my tone slightly irritated. I know you're mad too. I know you're mad, but you can't blame me for something you didn't do anything about. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw there. Do you think anyone could keep calm in front of that? She sighed, looking down at the file. My superiors want me to give you a break. Seriously, sir? I was about to protest. She raised her hand to stop me. Listen, the media is buzzing about this. For the good of everyone, including you, she pointed at me, it's best you take a break from this. I stared at her. She looked back, raising an eyebrow. After a moment, I reluctantly handed over my badge and gun. Langley smiled again. Okay, it will all pass. Take a break. Okay? I didn't answer. I left her office. It was 12 noon, and I had nothing to do but worry. So, I went home and slept. After all that had happened, I was exhausted. I woke when I heard the doorbell ring. I was still half asleep, pulling the pillow over my head, hoping that whoever was knocking would go away. The doorbell rang again. I rolled over, looking at the clock, 4 p.m. I was more tired than I thought. The doorbell rang again. I slowly got up and went to the door, my eyes still not fully awake. When I opened the door, a skinny, spiky-haired young man, who looked about 18, stood there, smiling politely at me. "What do you want?" I asked, somewhat rudely. "Oh, right. I was hired to drive you somewhere. I mean, if you want to go," he said. "What does that mean?" I looked at him, trying to guess if he was telling the truth. He shrugged. "I'm not really sure. Someone gave me $500 to ask if you want to go with me. But you don't have to go. They told me to say the decision is up to you." "Oh, yeah, right. I have to give this to you, too." He handed me a folded piece of paper. I opened it and read the scribbled words inside. "I heard you're unemployed. You should come work for my zoo. We always need more people. Hundreds of animals." The young man looked at me. "So, what are you going to do?" I looked at him, breathless. How did someone know I lost my job? This just happened. This was clearly a trap. This kid could be an accomplice. The last time I followed a piece of paper like this, I lost one person and almost lost another. So, should I go or stay? I turned to look at the boy. "Okay, I'll go." The boy drove with the caution of a new driver. We drove a long, slow road that took me out of the city into the deserted countryside. After about 30 minutes of driving along deserted dirt roads, the surrounding land got quieter. Finally, he stopped at the entrance to a large farm. I glanced at the sign as we entered. The Winston Family Farm. The road forked, and he took the right path, which eventually led to a farmhouse. The lights were on, and I heard the sound of machinery from a big barn behind it. The boy stopped the car. "This is your stop. Have a great evening, sir," he said, cheerfully, giving me just enough time to get out before he turned and drove away. I watched until the car lights disappeared, then walked up the stairs and into the hallway. I heard voices from inside the house, talking, laughter, like any house at dinner. Not sure what to do, I knocked on the door. The voices stopped. I heard footsteps, light on the wooden floor, approaching. The door opened. A man appeared, medium height, short hair, stubble. He looked at me with a distant look, then smiled. "Please come in. Glad you came. Dinner is ready. Come in and eat with us." His voice was deep and familiar. Very familiar. "I know you," I said, like an accusation. Memories came back to the night I found my sister's body. It was him. the one whose eyes always looked off into the distance. He tilted his head slightly. "Oh, I'm glad to hear that. That makes making friends easier. Come on, you seem hungry. Let's go eat." I didn't move. "I would never eat with him," I yelled. "You killed my sister." He looked at me wondering. "No, I didn't do that. I'm just a messenger, okay? You've got it wrong, girl. I don't care what you said." "Hey," I brushed him off. "Let's calm down and talk about this over dinner. I'm serious. Come in." He turned around, went into the hallway, and turned left into a room I guessed was the dining room. I heard some whispers and chairs being pulled out. It looked like everyone else had left. I had two choices. I could go in and find out what was going on, or I could walk away and forget it all. There was a problem, however. I would never forget. The pain would never go away. The horrors I saw would never be forgotten. I walked in. Inside, there was a table set as if for a big family meal. There was a roast lamb in the middle of the table. A man sat at the head of the table, directly across from me. It seemed everyone else had left. The man spoke, his voice deep and warm. "We can finally meet, Jonathan. I have so much to tell you." "And who are you?" I asked. He chuckled. "You'll find out. Come here, sit down. Eat whatever you want. I recommend you try the steamed asparagus. Bonnie makes it. It's delicious." I stood still. He didn't seem to mind and continued speaking. "Now, I want to remind you that you came here of your own free will, and you can leave whenever you want. We're not forcing you to stay here, but I really wanted your presence." He leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. "Now, before I go on, are there any questions you would like to ask? What makes you wonder the most?" It didn't take me long to think of a question. "Why did you do that? Why did you kill all these people?" He paused, looking disappointed. Went straight to the question. He sighed. "Look at the world around you. What do you see?" "I only see death. You of all people must know that. People die constantly, hundreds of people every second. So what does it matter if I take away a few more? That's just a drop in the ocean of death." He stood up. "And when people die, everything becomes meaningless. Everything they ever did is worthless in the infinity of eternity. But not only that, as a species, we're getting closer and closer to death. We can never make the right choices. So, on behalf of all, I am choosing." I shook my head, not believing it. "What choice? You are just torturing others to death. How can that solve anything?" "You still don't understand." His voice rose. "I am saving all of us. I am leading the beginning of human evolution. Soon I will be worshipped all over the world. The only one who sees clearly what is right and has the courage to carry it out." He turned to face me. "The first subjects were unfortunate, yes, but they have served my cause more than anything you can imagine. I almost created the perfect creature, the savior of mankind." He looked at me, his finger pointed straight at me. "And you will join me, embrace this new world." I was silent for a moment. This man is insane. Join him? I would leave as soon as I got the chance. But I had one more question. Why me? Of all people, why choose me? He smiled, then let out a low laugh. "So smart, yet you still don't understand? I didn't choose you. Look at you trembling in a corner. There are so many more suitable people than you," he said with contempt. "Tell me, why do you think I chose you?" "I don't know, my sister? You seem to care about me." He sneered. "You really don't know? Tell me, does your sister usually go out for walks at midnight?" I'm not sure, maybe not. So what? So what was she doing out there that night? The question surprised me. All along, I was only thinking about how she went missing, not why. Why was my sister there? The only way she could have disappeared is if she let it happen. I had dismissed that thought from the start. She wouldn't let herself be kidnapped, right? The man raised his eyebrows when he saw me silent. I deserve to know the truth. Everyone deserves it. Some people like to keep secrets, hoping they'll never be exposed, but I don't. I always try to be transparent. I long for a world without confusion. If you need proof, didn't I already tell you exactly where this is? Twice. Isn't that fair? The first time, you shot at us. I didn't shoot you. You just happened to be there. Okay, hey, I'll explain everything, but first I need one thing from you. Your loyalty. Tell me, Jonathan, will you join me? Are you crazy to think I want to get involved in this? I gestured to the room. A slow smile curved his lips. Regretfully, his eyes scanned my body as if seeing through everything. Look at you, always sneaking into situations you shouldn't be involved in. I think you'd make a pretty good snake. I heard a noise behind me. I turned around just in time to see a metal bar sweep towards me, hitting me straight on the forehead with a loud crack. It hurt so bad. That was the first thing I felt when I woke up. A burning sensation all over my body, concentrated in my forehead. A sharp pain that pulsed with every beat of my heart, blurring my vision. The cold metal floor was under my back. My hands. I was held back by shackles. I was locked up. I panicked. I tried to jerk my arm free from the chains in the blind hope that I could escape. The pain in my arm increased. It would probably leave a mark. I screamed in pain but found myself gagged. Struggling only makes it worse, you know, a voice rang out behind me. It was the man from dinner. Like I said, you can leave any time, but if you don't give me your allegiance, I'll have to take other measures. He walked into my line of sight, holding a saw. I'll make it quick, but I have to warn you, I don't like using anesthetics. The body knows pain. That's natural. He walked around to the other side of me and turned on a camera on a tripod. The flashing light indicated it was recording. He turned around and placed the saw blade on my left arm, right at the elbow socket. Now, the snake has no arms. I'll start from there. I tried to break free from the bonds once again. Fear pumped adrenaline into my veins. There was no way out. Panic kicked in. The basic human survival instinct. Don't struggle, Jonathan. It's just taking longer. It'll be over soon, I promise, he said in a calm voice. And with that, he pushed the saw down. My body screamed in pain, and my vision went black. I could feel blood pouring from the cut. The man continued to push the saw down, pulling it back and forth, cutting through veins and arteries. I felt him touch the bone and then just keep sawing. I felt the bone shift in my arm as it was cut in half. I passed out for the second time that evening. When I woke up, the rag in my mouth was gone, and my whole arm, the rest of it, was wrapped tightly in gauze and a tourniquet. Everything still hurt, but much worse than before. The man was still standing there behind the camera, looking pleased to see me awake. Good, you're up. He walked over and took my other hand. Everyone deserves the right to choose. Free will is what defines us. So I'll give you a choice. You can get up and get out of here right now and work for me. Or you will lose your other arm and have your legs sewn together. It's all up to you. Work for a madman or die at the hands of a madman. Survival instinct is stronger than honor. I want to work for you, I said, struggling to breathe. Very well, let me let you go. He pulled a key out of his pocket and quickly unlocked the shackles. I tried to sit up, then fell back down as my mind spun. The man started walking. "Now I will start training you. You can leave or explore around the house whenever you want. If you are hungry, there are leftovers in the fridge. Like I said, we are not keeping you here." He turned and smiled. "You will like this, Jonathan. Bye-bye." He left the room and walked up a few steps I hadn't noticed before. I took a moment to stand up, waiting for the ground to stop spinning. It was strange walking with an arm missing. I felt light and unbalanced. I looked around. This seemed to be a basement under the house with various surgical equipment. There were also recording devices placed everywhere. There was a door to my left and stairs right in front of me. On the door there was a sign with a single word on it: Zoo. I opened the door. Inside, the light was dim. The air smelled of musk and waste. A small machine in the corner of the room was making a humming noise connected to a large pile in the middle of the room. The door slammed shut behind me. The pile moved. I took a step back in fear. My vision adjusted. It was a human being. This person was extremely large, their body covered in layers of fat. Tubes from the machine connected to a mask covering his mouth, constantly pumping a pale gray liquid into his mouth. I had only seen this once before when I was hunting a murderer in an abandoned mental hospital. It was a force-feeding device. On both sides of the mask, this person had 2 large metal rods inserted into each nostril, then sticking out the sides of his head. Based on the scars, these bars were drilled into the ear canal until they poked out. I trembled at the thought. This person slowly crawled forward, pushing himself on the floor. He looked up at me, his eyes begging for release. I saw something else, a flash of realization. I looked closer, past everything I didn't want to see, and I recognized a friend. I saw Thompson. He was beaten and broken and bigger than he was, but it was still him. I rested my head on his shoulder and cried, long and hard. This, more than anything, broke me. Thompson didn't deserve this. No one deserved this. I looked back at the saw that had cut off my arm. I stood up and held it with my other hand. I brought it up to Thompson's face. His eyes were teary, but he nodded. A slow, clear nod. He understood what it meant. It would be hard to saw with only one hand, so I chose to swing hard, using the force to complete a clean cut, severing his aorta. The end of a painful life. I dropped the saw beside Thompson. I walked up the stairs and out the front door. I had no shoes. The gravel road was hard underfoot, but I kept going. I was leaving, and nothing was going to stop me. He had said so. But I was not leaving forever. I was going back. For Thompson, for Alice. I had nothing to lose and everything to save. I had 3 things on my mind as I walked home. The first was how to find a car to take me back. I estimated I was at least a 30-minute drive from any trace of civilization. There was a chance a car would pass, but the chances of them going in the same direction as me were even slimmer. I thought I could go back to the farm and try to start a car, but I didn't want to go back there. At least, not yet.